The Justice League are the world's greatest heroes, the number one team in the DC Universe. Debuting in 1960 and continuing through today, the team has gone through numerous members, incarnations, and even survived a multiversal reboot or two. But after all these years, it's time to start from scratch. Today, the League needs a new roster. Today is the Justice League Draft. All right, we are here for our Justice League draft. We are drafting 7 members of our Justice League. You can't pick anything that has already been picked before. And the goal here is to put together the coolest Justice League you can do with the 7 slots available. The only caveat is, well, not only that you can't pick something that someone else has picked, but also you have to pick members that have been on the Justice League before in any way, shape, or form. And you can get up to 2 wildcard picks in your 7 of characters that have never been on the Justice League before that you want to put on your team for the first time. So I guess I'm just going to go first. And I think my first pick is going to be Wally West Flash.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't know if any of you guys were going to pick that one.
No, I have one that I don't think people are going to pick. I'm thinking more specifically like who would be the leader of this Justice League. And for me, I'm going to go a little bit outside the box here, and I'm going to pick Captain Atom. And the reason why is because I think, first of all, he fits that sort of Superman type, strong, powerful leader thing. But I think there's also a very interesting conversation there with him being like a government stooge and him being against that way that he had to live. And I think there's a very interesting dynamic there of someone like that leading a Justice League and having to contain his powers and not go overboard and not, go too far off the deep end. I think having someone like that, like a more like unstable Superman figure, could be a very interesting leader for a Justice League team. So I'm gonna go Captain Atom here.
And that's your first pick. That's your leader of your team is Captain Atom?
That is my leader of my team right there, yes.
Okay. All right. Who am I to judge?
I wanted to pick something a little bit niche.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know if either Drew or me were going to pick Captain Atom for our team.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about Captain Atom.
Okay.
All right. I'm not alone here.
Not as my leader.
Yeah.
I was also thinking the same thing. You got to start with a leader, and mine is not going to be outside of the box. Mine is going to make a lot of sense. I'm going with Wonder Woman.
Nice.
Wonder Woman she's powerful, very strong. She pretty much has all of the superpowers that you would want, but what gives her the advantage is she has the strategic mind.
Yes.
Like she was trained in battle by the Greek gods.
On my first pick, I wasn't sure whether I was going to say Wally or Wonder Woman first. I wanted Wonder Woman, so you did legitimately steal it. I would have picked her right now.
Has there been a lot of instances where she's gotten to be the leader of the team? Because obviously Batman and Superman, sometimes it's through the lens of like Batman's kind of mapping things out where Superman's the forefront. But I don't think you at least get a lot of moments where she's the forefront leader.
I mean, she was the leader of Justice League Dark for a brief period.
Right, yeah.
But I feel like there was an event recently where she was very central to it. Was it Death Metal?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was super important towards
like
the end.
She
of
was
that.
Basically the star of it until they made it more of a Batman story.
Yeah, she kind of had like the big final moment there with like fixing the DC history in the world. Like I don't know if she talked to like the presence or something like that at the very end, but she had like a moment where she was like talking to like I don't know if it was like the hands of creation or whatever it is, but basically she was the one to fix the entire DC timeline, which is pretty huge for her. So there's at least that.
I have a wild card pick, but I'm going to pick it later.
Okay.
I think my second one, I'm trying to think like offensively, defensively, not in the context of Justice League, but to screw you guys over, because I'm trying to figure out who you guys would pick that would be on my list, because I can't afford a Wonder Woman loss again. So thanks so much for that. Okay, I'm just gonna put him on here because I need a tech guy. And my tech guy isn't the normal tech guy or the second most popular pick for tech. I'm gonna pick John Henry Irons, Steel.
That's a good pick.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one.
I think he's super underutilized because people think of him as a Superman character, but like completely different than Superman. He just wears the S on his chest.
No, that's a good pick.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And now I do think he fits a very interesting like section of like super smart character that's handling all of that kind of stuff, like the science aspect of things. Cause like typically I feel like if you're going for like the smart character, like I guess I don't know if Martian Manhunter fits necessarily that specific of a role that I think of like a cyborg or like a Mr. Terrific, but generally that kind of corner of characters where it's like this guy's kind of handling maybe Watchtower things and handling of those things. I could see like Steel being that kind of character for a Justice League team, which is very interesting. Kind of being the guy, maybe strategizing and putting things together, giving the alerts of these things. That's an interesting pick. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, he was on Grant Morrison's Justice League back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's not a wild card pick. Like, he's been on the team before. I just think he's underutilized. And also, like, the big hammer thing. Like, I want him to, like, come in and just, like, smash Despero's head in or something,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now I'm up. All right. I have one that's probably a bit more obvious. Yeah, I'll go with this one. So I'm gonna go with Kyle Rayner. And I talked to you, Dimitri, about this earlier, where I was considering using specifically the version of him when he was a Blue Lantern, because I've always felt that when it comes to the Human Lanterns, they have so many moments where they've actually really fit other Lantern Corps really well. Like Guy Gardner actually affiliates really well with being a Red Lantern. He's done it multiple times. He fits that. And I almost kind of wish that he just leaned in that direction more, because it's a bit more interesting since we have so many human Green Lanterns. Mm-hmm. And then with Kyle, his time as Blue Lantern has always been one where, at least from the people I've talked to, it's always been a very underrated era where it's like he actually fits that really well, being like a hope-related lantern. And especially with the whole thing of like they get these power-ups around other Green Lanterns and the very like peaceful, like Zen state sort of vibe that they have really fits Kyle Rayner. And especially in the way that I think of Rayner as a lantern, like obviously he can be super offensive, but I think of him also as the kind of guy that could like calm other people on the team down, be a very level-headed and compassionate person on the team, a younger guy, but still has his head on. I think I'm going to go with him specifically as a Blue Lantern here, because I think it fits having a lantern on the team, but in a very unique way, where it's still having Kyle, who's this really creative, young, cool guy, but you're giving him a very specific role as this like, calm, level-headed, compassionate character on the team. So I'm going to go with Blue Lantern and Kyle Rayner here.
That's a good pick. Yeah, so nobody else can take Kyle Rayner. And I don't think, I wouldn't count it as like a wild card pick, because Kyle Rayner has been on the Justice League before. He just has a different ring, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if you really wanted to, you could just make him a Green Lantern. But like, I was like, I think the Blue Lantern route's interesting with him, because it's just always been that thing where I'm like, I really do think he could have just stayed as one, because it's such a unique angle. Same way as I feel for Guy Gardner with being a Red Lantern. But yeah, that's my pick.
It makes sense to me.
Kyle Rayner would have been my Green Lantern pick if, you don't have to have a Green Lantern on the team, but like, yeah, Kyle would have been.
I just always feel like it's nice to at least have one, or at least something. Or if you really wanted to and you want to take a spin, maybe you have a hot take about Sinestro being a little bit more neutral and being on a team or something like that, if you're going to pick a little outside the box.
Has Sinestro ever been on the Justice League? I'm trying to think.
Good question. I don't think, to my knowledge, he has, but there's been obviously moments where he's had to like team up with Hal, or like taken the neutral or like helpful stance of the heroes.
Yeah.
So it's like not out of the realm of possibilities. In fact, I'd be a little bit more surprised if he hasn't.
I'm trying to think, because there was that post Forever Evil Justice League team that had Lex and Captain Cold on it. And I'm trying to think of if there were what the other villains were on that team.
He feels like the kind of character that would, at least he feels like one of those options of guys that's like evil, but like you could throw onto a roster if you were like, the Black Adam type, where it's like, okay, this guy could have like a, like a run where he's just on the team for like a little bit for whatever niche reason. Like if Justice League Odyssey continued to be a thing, he feels like a candidate for that to me. Like he really feels like a candidate for that.
You know what? it makes sense to have a Green Lantern on the team, which is why my second pick is going to be a Green Lantern. And it's going to be my favorite Green Lantern, but it's not. I'm not picking him just because it's my favorite Green Lantern. I'm picking him because the reason why he is my favorite Green Lantern is he's often put into a situation where he has to make really hard decisions, and they need a character who's going to be able to make hard decisions. I also think that you need somebody who has experience in like the cosmic, like on the cosmic side of
Mhm.
the DC universe. Um, Makes sense to have a Green Lantern because then you have access to like everything that's on Oa. You have access to the most powerful weapon in the entire universe in the Green Lantern ring. Um, Plus his time on Earth, he can bring that military training. I'm going with John Stewart.
Okay. Okay.
Sweet, sweet. Yeah.
I thought you were going for John Stewart, which is a great pick. I also thought that you were going to try to throw us a curveball and be like Kilowog.
Kilowog would be an interesting one.
I like Kilowog, but I don't know that Kilowog has a place on the Justice League. And the only reason why
Hmm.
is the Justice League is predominantly Earth-based. They don't only operate on Earth, but like everything is like based around Earth. They're protectors of Earth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if somebody who hasn't spent a lot of time on Earth would one be interested in that, would two be able to like think in Earth's best interests all the time.
That's true too.
That's a really good point, actually, because like I at least think about like, yeah, the Justice League usually would have maybe one or two truly like alien characters, but that's a very good point about like I don't know if Kilowog would always be coming for the best interest of Earth and the best interest of the league itself, and maybe that can make for an interesting dynamic. But I think in general, if he was offered a Justice League like membership or whatever, or to join the team, I feel as though he would feel that his time with the Lantern Corps and Oa is more important, and the decisions he'd have to make with them is
Yeah.
more important than the ones he'd make with the league. So that's a good point.
I think that he would see it as too small
Yeah,
first,
definitely.
and also I don't know, it's like asking a human to think about what's best for the ants.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I do wonder how that kind of conflict would work with him in that role. But it's like, yeah, I just can't even see him like accepting the membership, the invitation
Yeah.
itself. Yeah,
There's already, I mean, there's 1,000 Earth Green Lanterns, so
yeah. Don't
Yeah.
don't need another guy coming in here.
Pun intended.
Mhm.
Another guy.
Another
Uh,
guy. Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, like Kilowog would be like, yeah, if you were president and then you go down to being like a mayor of a city,
yeah.
it's like, oh, I guess, but
It would be a better use of his time to bring all of the experience that he's had with the Green Lantern Corps to training future Green Lanterns, which is really that's his job.
Yeah, exactly.
my third pick, just because I have been talking about her a lot lately, especially on a recent video that I did, I'm going with Vixen because Vixen's
Ooh,
power
Vixen's a good
set
pick.
is like I really would love her to expand what it means to have that animal totem. And I don't know whether she's used alien animals before. Like I know Beast Boy has, and I think Animal Man has, but I don't know if Vixen has, and I don't know whether she's able to, but I don't see why she wouldn't, you know?
yeah, that's an interesting one too. I think about that a lot. Like when we talk about like, all right, what are usually the sections of heroes and like power sets that you usually see out of like a Justice League team? Obviously, like you might want to throw in a speedster or like a lantern, those kind of things. When it comes to like characters with like the red, like all of those kind of characters with animal abilities, there's
Yeah.
actually a decent amount of them to think about which ones you would throw in there. Because Vixen's a great character, but there's also, if you really wanted to, since they're like, I guess technically older now, like a Beast Boy character, like there are actually a ton of people. Like I think Bawana Beast
Yeah.
is connected to the red as well, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a few characters in there that you could throw around onto a Justice League team. You don't think much about the red characters.
Yeah. What's cool about the animal characters is that like a human utilizing animal powers is like
there are animals that have powers in a way, right? Like in our
Yeah.
understanding. And so like I think there was one time, maybe it was Vixen, maybe it was somebody else that used the punch of a mantis shrimp, like
Whoa. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
people talk about that in like in real biology, right? Like that the mantis shrimp has a punch so powerful underwater that it evaporates the water around it into like a
Yeah.
sonic bubble. And so I think there was an animal character in DC or like a red related character that utilized that. And it's like those type of things would be so cool, you know?
100%. Okay, yeah, I like that pick a lot. I like that pick a lot. I was I was almost then about to go in one of those types of characters directions, but I'm going to stick to what I was thinking before. I'm going to go Red Tornado here. And so I'm going to go Red Tornado here because I'm thinking of, like you were saying, like, the sort of like smart tech character slash like watchtower figure. You know what I mean? I think of like a Martian Manhunter. I think of like a Mr. Terrific, something like that. Somebody who can kind of do watchtower things, be the hub guy, be the tech guy. And I think of especially, the way that Young Justice utilized Red Tornado as this like mentor figure. I think having a character like that be the central hub character for a Justice League like this and the Watchtower and handling missions, I think is very interesting. Especially when it comes to, I'm trying to think like the dynamics of like what him and Kyle Rayner and Captain Atom, these characters that all really don't spend a lot of time together, like at least in terms of being on similar rosters to each other. Like
Yeah.
Red Tornado's kind of whole thing is being this character that's trying to connect more emotionally, him being this android robot, right? So I think that dynamic with a character like Kyle, who is this very compassionate character, and a leader like Captain Atom, who's constantly trying to keep himself together, and like the dynamic of Captain Atom that's interesting to me with other characters is him trying to be this militaristic leader that's very controlled and together, but also not leaning too hard into that. You know what I mean? Like I always felt like sometimes writers like to play him as like a government stooge when the whole thing about him is he tries to push away from that, and you can play with like the flaws of him, kind of being a stooge and buying too hard into it and all the military propaganda stuff. But
Yeah.
I always think that's the interesting aspect of him is him realizing that and trying to push that all away. I think his dynamic with like a robot, watchtower strategy type character like Red Tornado would be really interesting to see. So I'm gonna go Red Tornado here.
I was thinking about Red Tornado later down the line, but
Yeah, I thought maybe I'd do it later, but I'm like, I'm gonna get out of the way now.
so my next pick is someone who I think could be picked up, and there was somebody I was thinking about getting here who's more so like there's a reason why I want to pick this person, and I probably will later, provided they're still around and available. But
Mhm.
I gotta snatch up this other person first because somebody is eventually likely to do it. And it's Aquaman.
Ooh, okay, okay.
I'm trying not to reveal too much about my thinking behind these until I get my entire seven.
Okay.
But I do think Aquaman needs to be a part of it. Aquaman, first of all, I mean, he can act as an ambassador to the ocean and to anybody who lives under the sea, whether that's Atlantis or any other kingdoms down there. I think that he does have experience as royalty. So that gives him prestige if they need to communicate with other civilizations that recognize royalty. So in to a degree, um, uh, Aquaman could be propped up as like the king of Earth in a way. Like he commands most of Earth if he commands the ocean, right? So
So you're saying for like diplomatic relations and all that sort of stuff?
say what?
Like for diplomacy, right? Like going to different planets, going to different like
For sure.
dimensions
I
and
mean,
having like an emissary.
yeah, between him and Wonder Woman, I would say also,
Hmm.
John Stewart as well. He has so much experience in outer space with other planets that any of them could be prepared to enter diplomatic talks with anybody. But Aquaman also has Aquaman is incredibly strong. He is able to, command the ocean life when necessary. Yeah, I just think that he's uh, perhaps often underutilized, but he is an important asset to the Justice League as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, now that you brought it up, I do like the way that this team's building out for you because you have a lot of like stern, like diplomatic voices here.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, you've got Wonder Woman, you've got Aquaman, but also John, I think, is the kind of person that can easily, while also just speaking for the Lanterns and handling the cosmic side of things. All three of those characters are people that could easily come into a diplomatic or political situation and deal with it in a very calm, collected, strategic manner. Like they all feel like they fit the same style of approach for those kinds of situations as a Justice League.
And if we need the story to be interesting, they can argue with each other.
They can. They can argue very much.
Also, all three of them are very old guard. You know, like
Yes.
they're tenured. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
This is my wild card pick, and it kind of fits in with the stories that I would tell with this. I'm going with Cassandra Cain, Batgirl.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I wanted a martial artist, and she's one of the best, if not the best. And I'm trying to stray away from the idea that like Batman needs to be on every Justice League team, or that that we kind of have like we allude to Batman through Batgirl being on the team, but like the spoiler alert, I'm not putting Batman on my team. And that's not because I dislike Batman. I love Batman. I just don't think he's necessary for this,
Yeah.
And like I also like the idea of like the new recruits of the Justice League. Like back in Morrison's JLA, we had Wally West Flash and Kyle Rayner Green Lantern. Even before that, with the Super Friends, we had Challenge of the Super Friends, which had Cyborg and Firestorm in the cartoon, like joining the Super Friends, right? And so the idea of that, like, yeah, it is nice to see people kind of graduate, because I'm sure people would throw Batgirl into like a Titans team of some sort, which we'll get to, but like, I want to see her. I want to see her fight bigger level threats and see what happens there.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I like the approach of a Batman type character, but having them be a more young character like Cassandra Cain, especially because at least in terms of them being on the Justice League, it implies they've kind of graduated past that young hero role, and it's interesting to see, like, at least the way I look at it, Kyle Rayner has always been kind of like a young Justice affiliated character. And then with Morrison stuff, it was very much, all right, he's Justice League. He's with these guys. He's with the big boys. So it's interesting in my mind to think of Cassie taking that next step and interacting with people like Vixen and them as like you're turning a character like Batman or a Batman type figure into a younger new role, which is interesting to me. Such a younger new role. I like that.
Also, the problem with Batman that can happen with him on the Justice League is him solving all the problems. And it's like, let's have our like characters have flaws here. Like Cassandra Cain is amazing, but she's not a tech guru like Batman is, as well as martial arts. Like,
Yeah. She fits that role as kind of like being incredible as a fighter and incredibly smart, but also super young and not like into the thick of this. Like she's kind of the character that could maybe like, get a little angry and beat the crap out of somebody and it becomes maybe a situation. It's an interesting wild card in a way to be on a Justice League team. I like that.
And she has history with Vixen in the recent Birds of Prey run that just ended.
True. That's true. Interesting.
At least she's fought with her before.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So as of now, I'm feeling like, at least the way I look at a Justice League team, I always at least like to have two female characters just for the sake of the diversity of it.
Yeah.
And, especially because typically people either go for like a Hawk Girl or it's Wonder Woman or something like that. I'm going to go with Dr. Light. I'm going to go with Dr. Light.
Kimio, right?
Yes. I'm going to go with her. I think she would be such a unique addition to the team in terms of her powers and her power set and stuff like that. Because she's got, I think she can turn invisible. She phases through stuff too, all that kind of stuff, force fields, all that kind of stuff. So if you're trying to have like a female character on the roster, in terms of like slightly niche, but not crazy niche, she's kind of where I lean. I think that she fits this sort of cosmic cosmic slash science-y vibe that this team is going for with like Red Tornado and Kyle Rayner and Captain Atom. Like they fit that similar style to me. And I just think she'd be the kind of character that could easily be one of the top ones that Captain Atom goes to and looks for advice if they're handling a situation. Like she would be one of those top candidates that's handling situations and they're talking about things back and forth. So like she wouldn't be, to me, she wouldn't be one of the younger new guns. She'd be one of the more like seasoned characters. Like her, Red Tornado, and Captain Atom to me are the pretty seasoned ones of this team. So
Great pick. She was on the, I mean, she's been a Justice League member for a while on and off, right? Like she was in the Satellite era.
I think she was in Justice League Unlimited in a few pretty decently strong episodes. Like she was there for a while.
There was I forget which book it was. It came out recently where her and Ray Palmer were talking. Ray Palmer, the Atom, and they're on the Justice League Unlimited satellite watchtower, and they hint at a relationship between the two. And it was the first time that it dawned on me. I didn't even get to talk about this on the show on Comic Talk. So like this is the first time I'm talking about it. Like I love there, it's a short story. It's in some anthology book, and I forget which one. But they kind of paired them up together, and I was like, oh, I could see this. It's just like she's one of the smartest minds in the DC universe. So is Ray Palmer, and the fact that like, okay, yeah, let's see what happens with these two. They haven't done anything since, but you know,
that's an interesting dynamic, the two of them. Okay,
it was cute.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm gonna bust out one of my wild cards.
Okay.
Let me ask you, what is justice?
Ooh.
What is justice?
What? Where are you going? Are you gonna pick a Watchmen character? What?
No, I'm not gonna pick a Watchmen character.
I know you like Watchmen, so
yeah, but they don't. Yeah, they don't count.
Okay. What is justice? I don't know, Drew. What is justice?
Well, I think that justice is more than just. I think it's more than punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think many of the members of the Justice League would recognize that justice is often giving people a second chance.
Yeah.
Is allowing people the opportunity to rehabilitate themselves and make up for past mistakes or crimes or misgivings. My team also needs somebody who. Just like you were saying, Jack, you need somebody who's connected to the red, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you need somebody who's connected to the green.
Oh, okay.
And that's why, I think most people would pick Swamp Thing because he's like the green guy, but I'm going with Poison Ivy. And
okay.
So the reason why I picked Poison Ivy is because, and I put Poison Ivy over Swamp Thing because I do think you need somebody who has that like environmental sense. You need somebody who is connected to, like, if you have the red, if you have the green, right? You need somebody who speaks for these what are they, realms? I don't know what you call it, but I think Poison Ivy is. In recent years, they've turned her from more of a villain to an anti-hero. And that shows some kind of growth that, like, she does, like, there is something in her that wants to do good. And so the Justice League offers her this opportunity. And it's like, if it works out, it's a win for them because they get to show other villains, like, hey, if you do your time and you show that you've turned over a new leaf, no pun intended, we will allow you, this opportunity to do good in the world. And you can show other people that that change is possible, that you can have change within yourself. And I think that, if you're just treating bad guys like bad guys all the time and not recognizing this opportunity for growth, you can't call yourself the Justice League.
That's a really good pick. That's interesting too, because like you said, when it comes to the green, most people think Swamp Thing, but especially because, in terms of when we talk about characters that get redemptions and stuff like that. I always prefer when there's a really core reason as to why a character is being redeemed. Like, I don't like it when it's just we're taking this villain and we're just getting a spin on it just to see what if he's a good guy for a little bit. But especially with Poison Ivy and the way her character has always gone, she's always been a character that feels like she could have always leaned towards being redeemed. It always felt very justified for her character to start leaning in that direction. And sometimes they've always played around with the idea of her being an ally to Batman. You know what I mean? There's always been those aspects. The idea of her being the core like voice of the green character for the Justice League, especially as she like goes from being sort of like a fun, high powered Batman, street villain kind of vibe. She's not like a street level character, but she's like, like not a goofy villain, but she is in Gotham City. She's not.
She's
like
very much a Gotham character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Taking that and making her like almost in a way kind of a bit of a magical character and being a focus on your Justice League team. That's really interesting. I like that a lot, especially to be that character with redemption.
Let me just point something out here. I don't think that in comics it wasn't until G. Willow Wilson's run where they connected her to the Green. I don't recall Poison Ivy ever talking about the Green until that run.
Yeah.
But I was saying for years that she should have connection to the Green. And so in that video game I wrote, Justice League Cosmic Chaos, I made that a very explicit thing that she was connected to the Green. So I'm just saying, this is they saw my idea and they were just like, "Wow, this guy's right." And I'm just like,
he knows what he's talking about.
What can I say?
Yeah. I love that pick. No, I think that fits so well because especially as I'm like thinking as kind of all of our teams build up, like what the theme of it feels like. It's interesting to have the contrast of a character like that with three very diplomatic, stern, like you said, Dimitri, old guard characters. That's an interesting dynamic there.
I was afraid you're gonna bring in. I don't know. I was. I'm never sure what Drew is the wild card. I mean, I guess I have to go. I have to go next. This is there's one I'm still thinking about, so I'm gonna keep it till later. I am gonna pick my second. No, I can only have two wild card picks. Okay, that's right. Okay. Okay. This is a wild card pick. It might be the wildest wild card pick that any of us have picked so far. And I'm afraid, is it going to open up Pandora's box? I don't know. It's not Pandora. That wasn't a pun.
There. I will say I didn't pick her. There was one point where I thought about that being a wild card on my team. There was one. I know, but I tried to think like, what's a really weird angle to take this that could work. There was a slight part of me that thought about that for like a second.
I love this character so much, and I don't know what the future of this character holds. So whether this character is even viable for this. If both of you guys agree I can't use this character, that's fine. But I think I can. Absolute Wonder Woman.
Oh,
I don't think there's any reason why you can't.
It is a wild card pick because she hasn't been on the Justice League here or anything, right?
Well, even like lore wise, it could work. You could just we already have multiple versions that end up being parts of teams or being important to stories. You can just say that, like, with the inclusion of all these characters, she's on main Earth or whatever it is. Like that could totally work. Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, there has been a history of Justice League members that have come from other dimensions, other timelines and that sort of thing. We're coming back from the future to the present and that sort of thing. But this is my second and last wildcard pick would be Absolute Wonder Woman. I love Wonder Woman. Drew took Wonder Woman proper. But then I also like the power set. Like her power set is different than
you get with Absolute Wonder Woman, you get a magic user.
Yeah. And I would also the question is, does her magic work in the same way if she hops universes? I don't know, but could be nice to explore that. Plus, I want to see.
That's a really interesting question with a lot of implications if the answer is yes. Because if her magic works across different universes and on different Earths, then that means that her magic comes from the same hell, which means that she's in the same hell that everybody goes to.
which I don't think like I wouldn't write it that way because I personally don't like multiversal constants because anytime you only need one thing in fiction to disprove a multiversal constant and like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like maybe, but or maybe it works in a different way. I would just love to see her meet Cersei, like in the Prime Earth.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see how she would react to this Earth and the things that she know are true. You know,
Undoubtedly, that is a thing that is going to happen someday.
I need it. I need it. So that's my pick.
Okay. All right. There's a few wild card ones I'm thinking about, but there's also another character that's really important to what I'm trying to do that I'm probably going to tackle first because maybe they'd get picked. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go with him first. My next pick here is going to be Dr. Fate, and specifically Khalid Dr.
Oh,
Fate, the newest one. And the reason why is because to me, this character would be probably the most important character on the team to me. This would be like the X factor of the entire team. So I wouldn't look at this Dr. Fate in the traditional sense of like these more stoic magic, stern type characters like in the original sense of like, oh, maybe they're like a watchful mentor, stern figure. This would be obviously Khalid, who's a much younger character. But I think what would make this character very interesting is obviously you have the contrast of the characters on this team of like Red Tornado and Dr. Light and Captain Atom, these people that have kind of been seasoned in this stuff and are very important people to talk to advice wise, strategy wise. And even Kyle Rayner, who's somebody that's more seasoned as time has gone on, is still a younger character with a more younger perspective on things than I would say the other three. So I think what's interesting about Kyle and Khalid in the sense of this team is that they're both characters with incredibly powerful magical tools that are so important to like judgment and justice and all these aspects of things. Like Kyle is a space cop, but as a Blue Lantern, it's a lot more of that peaceful Zen state, like almost a little bit Buddhist vibe of tackling that space cop idea. And I think on the side of Dr. Fate, when it comes to like chaos and order, and typically the way that Dr. Fate is very direct and black and white and harsh at times and kind of cruel with his decisions with Nobu and stuff like that. I think getting a younger character like Khalid, who has such a deep faith in like Islam and is a Muslim character, having a character like that who has to balance his faith of Islam with his scientific knowledge, especially with characters on the team who are all entirely science-based, like Dr. Light, like a tech robot like Red Tornado and Captain Atom. And then on top of that, his belief and usage of magic, I think is an interesting balance for a young character like him, especially to be like, in my opinion, at least on this team, the most important character. Like to me, if I'm writing stories about this team, he's the central most important character of these stories. Like if there is a big overarching narrative, it is incredibly tied to him as a character on this roster. So to me, it's interesting because you're kind of flipping the idea of that older mentor, strong, stoic character and turning them into a young, faith-based character that has so much importance to this team in terms of what he will learn and the way he views the world. So I'm going to go Dr. Fate here.
yeah, I got nothing to say other than like you got a pretty strong team. One would say
Yeah.
too strong. I would say like people are gonna be protesting in the streets. Like everybody's just godlike.
And I'm trying to think of it more from a perspective of like who has a very interesting dynamic as a team. Like to me, this would be like a Justice League that's handling pretty heavy stuff. You know what I mean? Like pretty heavy stuff. But it's so funny. I didn't really even think about how overpowered in terms of power they are. But to me, I've looked at it very much like what would be an interesting dynamic of characters for a Justice League. And to me, a lot of these characters are powerful characters that are a bit unstable or at least a bit, they're seeking something. Like I think Red Tornado is very much seeking like connectivity and other people and like social human moments. And I think Captain Atom's a character that's like seeking the ability to be a good leader and keeping himself stable and especially balancing the aspects of like the militaristic aspects of him and not going full propaganda, military might mode. And then I think when you have a character like Dr. Light and Kyle Rayner, who are these much more calmer young characters that can balance those things, and having such a powerful thing like Nobu's helmet of fate on a young, Muslim character, I think it just adds a very interesting dynamic to the way this would work. So yeah, that's my pick there.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. I need a science-based hero. I don't have one yet.
Mhm.
You know what's better than one science-based hero?
Okay, yeah.
Two.
Two science-based heroes.
I should just make it so that this takes up 2 slots, but no. I know where you're going with this. Okay.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Pull the trigger.
I don't think I do.
I'm going with Firestorm, particularly Jason.
Oh,
Um,
I almost went Firestorm, but I felt there'd be too much overlap with him and Captain Atom in terms of like that type of style of abilities. Great pick. Great pick.
I'm going with Jason, mainly because I like him better than Ronnie, but also I think that Jason, because like when he's paired up with Martin Stein, he has this really, he has two different perspectives of the science of it all, right? But you also have two different perspectives of the world. You have an older guy with Martin Stein. You have a younger guy with Jason, and so really, it's kind of a twofer. But then you get all of the powers that Firestorm has, which I mean, he has quite a bit. He has like X-ray vision, has the fire powers, he has flight, he has super strength. So it allows him to be kind of a tank on the team, but also he is just like he brings a lot to the table. So he's not just like I don't know who was the in the Justice League International days the USSR robot or
Rocket Red?
Yeah, Rocket
Yes,
Red.
yeah.
Rocket Red was kind of just a tank, right? He was just there to to fight, and he didn't really bring a lot to the table.
Yeah.
But I think Jason is a really interesting character. I think that he brings a lot of wisdom with him because he has the ability to access Martin Stein's mind, as well as the youthfulness of the body. So it's not like he's going to be falling apart or anything on the battlefield. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he brings two different perspectives to the league in one package.
That's interesting too, because I think about like the dynamics of the characters on your team. Like I'm so curious to see like what he would do interaction wise with a character like Poison Ivy that is redeemed and is taking this more heroic role. Especially a character like him who would probably maybe be like, doubted for his advice a bit more when it comes to like diplomatic situations or strategy situations. I think his dynamic with the older old guard style characters and his, inclusion in the conversation of like, we need to handle it this way or this way, and what Martin Stein might tell him and all those things. That would be interesting to see the way they strategize and talk about things.
Yeah.
There's also kind of an opposite thing with Firestorm and Poison Ivy because Firestorm can't affect organic material, right? I believe
I think so.
isn't that like a parameter of Firestorm?
He's got very complex powers, and I have to
He
think
can
about this for
change
a
the
second.
atomic,
Yeah.
like the atomic structures of things, but I don't think he can change or like he can't make a human being into a puddle of goop.
You're right.
Right. He's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
he doesn't have metamorphose powers.
Yes.
Metamorpho can utilize all elements. Sure.
Yeah.
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 So Poison Ivy being able to control plants, he can't affect that. And they're both on two different,
Right.
sides. Okay. And I forget where they left off with Jason Rush or Jason Roosh. Is would you have it that is it just him and he has to merge with anyone, but it doesn't have to be Martin Stein, or do you have it as Jason and Martin all the time?
I would have it as Jason and Martin
Okay.
via the Matrix, but
Yeah. Okay.
um, just because I think that he's always kind of needed that more experienced. I'm kind of thinking of this as from like a younger, he hasn't been Firestorm for very long kind of thing.
My pick, because everybody talks about Grant Morrison's run of JLA. I love. So it was Grant Morrison, then it was Mark Waid. He took a little bit of it, and then it was Joe Kelly. I love Joe Kelly's run of Justice League. Very specifically, I love the Obsidian Age 12-parter or whatever. It was like a whole so basically the Justice League get taken into the past and they disappear and they get killed in the past. And then there's a prompt that sets up a secondary Justice League. I think out of that comes Major Disaster. So
Mhm.
Major Disaster becomes a member of the Justice League. So this is not a wild card, but Major Disaster is a villain turned hero, and I really want a member of that team on my list. So Major Disaster can literally control anything. I it's not elemental, but it's like he can cause earthquakes. He can like cause a volcano to explode. He can like call an asteroid to Earth. Like it's all like I don't know. Like how would you describe his power set? Like uh it's natural disaster based essentially.
I don't know this character at all.
Yeah, that's a niche one right there.
He Yeah, he was on the Justice League for a little bit, and they kept bringing up the fact that he's an ex-villain. And as of recently, I think he popped up in a Superman story where he went back to robbing banks, but like it was for a reason.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
remember that.
Yeah. And I was kind of disappointed to see the fact that like he had gone back to villainy. And Superman too, because Superman was like, I believe that people can change. And so this is kind of disappointing. Um, I need Major Disaster to come back on the team. Also, I'm trying to think of Wally was the Flash on the team when Major Disaster was on the team, but everybody else is new. So the fact that other people on the team wouldn't be trustworthy or trusting of him um is a dynamic that I wanted. I want a villain or like an anti-hero or somebody who's trying to become better to be on this team.
I agree. That's a really good idea. I wonder who you got it from.
I I I could have picked any villain as a wild card pick, but I used my wild card picks on Batgirl and Absolute Wonder Woman. So it is what it is.
I'm looking at
Um
my list right now. I don't know that I have a second wild card pick, so
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't borrow it from you. That's not how it works. But I'll tell you one thing. It was either Major Disaster or I was thinking about Tattooed Man.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Really? On
I
your
was,
justice? Interesting.
yeah. And so Tattooed Man, any tattoo on his body, like he can use. And he was an
Mhm.
old Green Lantern villain. I think he was on the Justice League like once. And like technically that doesn't, I could technically use him as my seventh, but no, I'm not gonna. The cat's out of the bag. I'm not gonna do that. But all right. That's my pick. Major Disaster.
Nice, nice. Okay. All right. So if I'm up, let's see here. I need a martial arts character. I need a grounded character that's going to be able to handle the more street level aspects of things. And I don't want to do Batman just because it's obvious. Like, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go with Connor Hawk. I'm going to go with Connor Hawk Green Arrow. I think that in terms of bringing a character that's a elite martial artist, I think that he's the most interesting one. I think not only does this add like a arrow type character to the roster, it's just interesting dynamics in terms of the way that he would interact with the younger characters versus the older characters, because he's kind of in that same ballpark of like Kyle Rayner, where it's like younger character but also has graduated to the other level, so it's like constantly in this weird effort of like sometimes they treat him like he's really young, but then sometimes he is just one of the big boys. So I think his dynamic with Kyle Rayner would be interesting since they've interacted a ton. But also I think him and Kyle can be that that sewing that thread that connects younger guys like Dr. Fate to the older Captain Atom, Red Tornado guys. I think it's an interesting wild card to have for like a vigilante mixed martial artist type character instead of just like a Batman-esque character or like a Nightwing or something like that. And he's just a cool character in general that I've always really, really liked. So yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna go Connor Hawk here.
Did you say he is your wild card pick or he's not?
No, he's not my wild card
Because he
pick.
has been. on the Justice
Yeah,
League. Yeah.
yeah, he has. My wild card pick. That's gonna be my last one. That's
Okay.
gonna be my last one. Yeah,
Okay. I love Connor Hawk. I just
he's great.
purposely did not choose him because of reasons. But okay.
I'm gonna pick Hawk Girl. Um,
Nice.
I'm not picking Hawk Man because I, while I think that it would make, I think Hawk Man in particular would add a lot of like fun, drama and philosophical differences
Mhm.
between a lot of the characters. I prefer Hawk Girl. So, but the main reason why I'm picking her, why either of the Hawks, I think is important to have on the team, really comes from the reincarnation aspect of the character, because if they have the ability to access their old memories of their old lives, um, that makes them a really interesting asset to the team because they kind of have this idea of how the world changes because they've been part of it for so long, and really the universe too, because there was the period of time whenever they were from was it Ran or Thanagar? Thanagar,
Yeah,
right?
Thanagar.
For Hawk Girl? Yeah. Thanagar.
Yeah. And so I think that you need somebody who recognizes the longitude of the earth, right?
Right.
Not in terms of like, length, but like,
Yeah.
how long the earth has been around. And has and knows that they are going to be there in the future at
Mhm.
some point. Another, what, 4,000 years, something like that.
Quick question. Is this Kendra Saunders or is this Shira Hall? If it's Hawk Girl, it's probably Kendra Saunders. Hawk Woman is off in outer
It's
space right
Shayera.
now.
Yeah, I would say Kendra.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, you need somebody who who has been around and who's going to be around, but also like recognizes their life now and doesn't think of it as like this time on Earth is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a
That's a
great
good
pick.
one. I considered Hawkgirl for a little bit just because of obviously, like, you have a lot of characters that can really speak for big factions of the DC universe. Like, now you have somebody that can very much speak for Thanagar.
Question about, because I'm thinking about your team, Drew. Kendra Saunders has nth metal wings, right?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm just wondering if Firestorm can affect nth metal.
I think he can. I think that he can.
They don't need to fight each other, Dimitri.
I'm not. Look, we can see it from one end. We can see it at one end. Like, can they fight each other? Sure. But on the other end, can they boost each other? You know what I mean? Like, I'm also thinking in that respect.
Sure, yeah, I get that.
Also, are you going to go your whole Justice League run without any of your characters fighting each other? You've got to have
No,
that.
Poison Ivy is there.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think of my final pick. And this one's tough to round out my team. Okay. All right. I know who I'm going to pick only because I borderline ship them and I need that. I'm going to pick Connor Kent.
Oh,
Connor
okay.
Kent, Superboy.
Interesting.
I'm thinking about the character dynamics between all this, but I do ship, borderline ship. It depends on my how I feel at the moment. Cassandra Cain and Connor, a little bit. I can see them like kind of, especially because they're both like forgotten children sometimes of their respective dynasties, right?
Mhm.
And the idea that like, they're trying to make a name for themselves um outside of like, who their parent is, let's just say. Um, and so would I still call him Superboy? I don't know, but that's what I'm picking.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was gonna ask, would he be still Superboy for you? Like he would.
I don't know. Right now we don't have any Superboys, right? Like or at least Jonathan Kent is Superman. I think he should have stayed Superboy. I think Connor should have moved up to
Mhm.
something else. But I don't know.
Feels like that's the moment for him to get like a new title, you know?
But I don't want it to be like cheesy whenever they do that. They're always like, he is force field. And it's like,
Yeah.
super force. Like keep that title, but like change it a little bit. I like him in the recent miniseries, Superboy Man, was it Man of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
where he goes off world. I like
Yeah.
that series, so I want to see him kind of continue on that growth, and then also really use his tactile telekinesis. Like I really want to focus. I would focus on that.
Interesting. Interesting. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. If I'm up next, speaking of Superman related characters, this is my wild card. And it's definitely, I really do not think anybody would have picked this character. Um, I'm gonna go with this is what my final character for my team. I'm gonna go with Cyborg Superman, Hank Henshaw. And the
Okay.
reason why, the reason why I'm going with this is because I think the idea of a character like Hank Henshaw being forced to be redeemed is very interesting. And the reason I pick him is because I think about the way that my team has been set up. And it's very much a team with young heroes and more seasoned characters that all kind of revolve around either utilizing, incredibly important, powerful artifacts or are more science-based tech characters, right? Captain Atom, very sciencey character. Same thing with Doctor Light, and then Red Tornado is an incredibly tech-based character. And to me, an interesting aspect of Cyborg Superman is his relationship with being Cyborg Superman, with being this person who hated what he became and all these mechanical aspects to him, to then almost like embracing it at his points as a villain and being this spiteful, angry person who hates Superman. To me, the idea of him being forced to be on a team like this to be better and him dealing with characters like Red Tornado who have to live entirely as a robotic mechanical character and doesn't have any flesh whatsoever. I think the dynamic of the way that he could come to terms with who he is and the good that he can be in relation to somebody like Red Tornado could be really, really interesting. And the way that he sees Red Tornado deal with being this person who longs for connection and emotional aspects of things, like a character that has fully embraced being this robotic like identity. I think him seeing that, like to me, he'd be a character that's constantly like kind of betraying them, screwing them over a bit, and is constantly like this like almost thorn in the side. But as time goes on, there's an element of him that comes to terms with not being Superman, but being this Superman, being this cyborg Superman. And I think especially having a character like Captain Atom, who's taken the role of that kind of macho Superman type character, his relationship with a character like Hank and showing him kind of the way, and not even necessarily showing him the way of being a good hero, because I think Captain Atom would be figuring it out pretty difficult like too. I think the way that those characters could bounce off of each other as, Cyborg Superman kind of wanting to push being the leader, being that Superman type character, but kind of screwing it up, and then getting angry and hating the way that people talk about Superman and the way that he wants to be perceived and the way people might be scared of him. I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics, at least to me, in the way that a character like Captain Atom and a character like Red Tornado would interact with somebody who is desperately trying to find their identity of not being Superman, but having to be cyborg Superman, right? Because so much of his character is like kind of just like hating what he is and hating who Superman is. And so I think there's an interesting dynamic to play with there with a character like that. Like I think he would constantly be screwing things up and constantly trying to fight everybody. But I think there's something there that I think would be really fun to play with narratively.
I'm already thinking about ideas for your team, but all right, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's your
That's
team, but
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I just think that'd be really interesting in terms of just this tech sciencey team.
I mean, I'm wondering if Drew's seventh pick is going to be The final of the 4 Supermen that came around when Superman died, you're like gonna put
Mine will be the
Eradicator.
Eradicator.
Eradicator. That's the only last of the 4 that haven't been picked.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah,
Because
we
I have
have
2 of them on
3.
my list. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Drew, it's your final pick for your 7th.
Okay. There's a lot of characters that unfortunately, I'm limited to 7. There's a lot of characters that I want to include, and I'm going to kind of run down some of them that I'm ruling out. I think I don't have a speedster, and I'm not gonna have a speedster. But if I were to have one, I think that I would go with Jay Garrick, for a number of reasons. But he's just, he's older, he's seasoned, he's from the Midwest, right? Like,
Nice.
uh, I wanted to pick Plastic Man, because he's just underutilized, and he can do a lot, and he's a funny guy. Um, but I think for me, like, one thing that absolutely has to be on a Justice League team, is a character who doesn't have any superpowers. And I think they need to be there, because for the superpowered characters, it can be very easy to forget what it's like to, and what it's like to not have superpowers and not have these abilities. And I do have John Stewart on my team, who doesn't have superpowers, but he spends a lot of time with that ring, and so that can probably give him the illusion that he has superpowers, provided that it's charged, because he can basically do anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting Nightwing on the team.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
I,
Yeah.
I think that you have to have somebody who just doesn't have any superpowers, to remind these larger than life godlike characters like what it's like to be, for all intents and purposes, a regular person. And I know that we can get into, like, oh, he has all this money and he grew up weird, but like, he is pretty much just a guy who has a lot of special training, you know?
Yeah.
And you have to have that. Otherwise, if they if it gets too easy to forget who they're fighting for and who they're protecting, um, they can start making decisions that don't actually reflect what's best for those people. And I just think you have to have a non superpowered character. I've always said that, like, that's why Batman is on the team. It's not necessarily because of his detective skills. It's because he gets to have a voice for just like regular mortal people on Earth. He has to be like a big part of it. And I know that I'm missing out on, like, Martian Manhunter, who I think also always needs to be on the Justice League. Like, he is
Yeah.
the heart and soul of the Justice League. But um, yeah, I think that a regular human character is going to take precedence over Martian Manhunter this time for me.
That's fair.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I like that.
And so if you look at my team, if you look at the characters I picked, my team is all about having representatives who understand the different aspects of the DC universe and the different aspects of Earth, while also bringing together all these different skills, so that they can be kind of a well-rounded, earthly representatives, but also protectors of Earth, because they're going to be discussing what's best for what they know about.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Like, for me, my perspective was trying to build like a Justice League team that felt like characters that were searching for the conclusion of what their identity is. And for me, I
Yeah.
think Captain Atom as a leader fits that. I think, especially if you're talking about Kyle Rayner as somebody who's always been that weird middle ground, like I said, of like, they treat him like a big guy, then they don't sometimes. And then especially if we're talking about him with like a Blue Lantern powers, and it's like, I think that's searching for an identity. Red Tornado, Dr. Light, especially Dr. Fate, and then absolutely Cyborg Superman. I think they all fit that vibe of these characters that are first trying to find out who they are before they find out what they what they all are together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a good theme. Yeah, I like that.
The way I was tackling my team is kind of like your first string football team is out, mostly. Like we're talking like episode 1 of Friday Night Lights. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the big heavy hitters aren't here. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, right? And so it's a lot of the second string guys who are playing varsity, but they're still second string
Yeah.
moving up to first, right? As well as some like incoming freshmen that are like, yeah, we're playing varsity because we have a need for these characters. Wally West has always been like, yeah, he's first, he's first pick, right? But a character like Steel or Vixen having a lot of experience, but still being pushed to second fiddle, doesn't sit right with me. And like the other characters. So mine was more about vibes.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you ever say who you wanted to be like the leader of your Justice League?
Uh
Or would there be no leader? Would there not be one?
there isn't a clear leader, but I wouldn't mind if Vixen was my leader.
That'd be interesting. That'd be
You know?
very interesting.
I mean, with the old guard, we are dealing with a Wally, Steel, Vixen sort of like three senior members of the team.
Mhm.
Then we have Batgirl and Superboy being the two youngsters, and then the two not wild cards as far as the game is concerned, but like two wild card characters is Absolute Wonder Woman, who these characters know nothing about, and
Right.
except for what's going on in DCKO right now is like she has an aspect of Darkseid in her, right? Like in a way,
Yeah.
as well as Hell Magic. So sure, and then Major Disaster coming back. Um,
That's the
and
most
like
interesting pick to me. That's an interesting one.
yeah. And it's funny that Drew, three members of Drew's team are Obsidian Age picks. So like, I don't know,
Hmm.
Drew, if you've read Obsidian Age, but like
I actually never have.
Nightwing, Hawkgirl, and Firestorm are part of the Obsidian Age Justice League team. And like,
Interesting.
and I love the Obsidian Age team. So that's a lineup that has like Etrigan the Demon is on the Justice
Cool.
League. And so like I like all three of our lineups. So I guess the question for everybody out there is let us know which lineup you like the most. It isn't about necessarily who wins in a fight, but like I don't know. I want to hear other people's reactions to our seven. So that's the Justice League for you. Take your pick.
Sweet.